All right, let's unpack this. We're diving into a market today that might seem incredibly specific on the surface, but trust me, it's a fantastic lens for viewing some much larger global shifts. We're looking at the global bicycle lights market.
That's right. And the material we're exploring, it comes from recent market research, giving us a pretty robust set of numbers on trends and forecasts for this particular industry.
Yeah, and our mission in this deep dive isn't just to, read off those numbers. It's to figure out what they mean. What's really driving the growth in bicycle lights?
Mhm.
What does this niche market tell us about, say, the surging popularity of cycling, about sustainability efforts, and how our cities and, well, our lives are changing?
And the overall picture presented by the data is quite telling, actually. The global market for bicycle lights was valued at $304.4 million back in 2021.
Mhm.
It's projected to nearly double that. Well, more than double, really, to $828.4 million by 2033.
Wait, it's more than doubling in just over a decade. That's significant. It represents a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of 8.7% over that period.
Exactly.
When you hear that level of growth for specifically bicycle lights, what immediately comes to your mind? Does that number surprise you at all?
Well, it certainly points to this being far more than just a minor accessory market now. That kind of sustained growth indicates it's tied into some fundamental changes.
Hmm.
And as the sources make clear, it's directly linked to the increasing adoption of cycling globally.
Exactly. The research highlights key reasons people are getting back on bikes. It's increasingly seen as a genuinely viable, sustainable way to get around, especially in urban areas.
Right.
And it's booming as a popular fitness activity too.
And underlying both of those is a rising global awareness of environmental impact,
Yeah.
pushing individuals towards greener alternatives. You see that everywhere.
Which brings us right back to the lights themselves. They are absolutely crucial safety and visibility technology.
Central.
Yeah. As more people cycle, whether they're commuting or out training, needing reliable lights isn't really optional anymore, is it? It's essential. And that demand is a significant engine fueling this market expansion we're seeing.
So let's quickly anchor ourselves with those global figures again. We're tracking from $304.4 million up to $828.4 million. That's an 8.7% tree EGR.
Right.
But like you said, this isn't happening uniformly everywhere. The global story is really a mosaic built from very different growth rates and market sizes across the world.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really interesting, I think. Let's break down those regional pictures and see where the strongest trends are emerging.
Absolutely. So starting in North America, the market there is large and it's growing steadily. Its overall CAGR is 8.6%. Pretty healthy.
Okay.
Now, while the United States naturally represents the biggest slice of the pie, projected to hit over $158 million by 2033,
Mm-hmm.
the most compelling growth story in the region actually comes from Mexico.
Oh, that's interesting. So Mexico's numbers climb from, what, $9.2 million up to $27 million by 2033?
That's right. And that's a THER of 9.487%, actually the highest in North America.
Wow. Why do you think Mexico is outpacing its neighbors in this specific market growth? What could be behind that?
Well, the source data itself doesn't give us, a single explicit reason. But often in analyses like this, a higher growth rate like that, especially in a country like Mexico, it can signal a few things.
Okay.
It might reflect rapidly changing urban mobility patterns, maybe increased investment in cycling infrastructure, or perhaps specific government or community initiatives promoting cycling safety, things that are driving demand for lights faster than elsewhere in the region.
Right, a combination of factors, probably.
Could be. It's definitely a standout trend worth noting. Canada also shows solid growth projected to exceed $55 million by 2033. So strong across the board, but Mexico's acceleration is notable.
Okay, so North America's solid, but Mexico shows that accelerated growth. Let's move across the Atlantic then, to Europe, which is currently the largest regional market, right?
Yes, Europe is significant. Revenue there climbing from $115.1 million up to $291.6 million by 2033. That's an overall CAGR of 8.057%.
Still very strong.
Very strong. And we see, as you'd expect, strong contributions from major cycling nations. The UK, Germany, France, Italy, they all represent substantial markets and are projected to more than double in size over the forecast period.
Mm-hmm.
Spain is another strong performer here. nearly tripling its market value to reach $29.5 million, and has a notable 9.475% CAGR, quite high for the region.
So those major countries showing solid doubling type growth. What about the rest of Europe, the smaller
Yeah,
markets?
this is fascinating. The category labeled Rest of Europe,
Yeah.
which kind of lumps together many smaller markets. It actually shows the highest regional CGR in Europe.
Really?
Yeah, a significant 10.584%. It's projected to climb from $6.6 million up to $22.5 million by 2033.
Wow, over 10% CAGR for those combined smaller markets. What could be driving that kind of explosive growth compared to the larger, maybe more established European markets?
That often suggests that cycling adoption and therefore the demand for essential gear like lights is accelerating really rapidly in countries that maybe started from a smaller base.
Right, they're catching up fast.
Exactly. They're now quickly embracing cycling for transport or recreation.
Hmm.
Could be driven by EU-wide policies, maybe strong local initiatives, or perhaps just faster behavioral shifts in specific smaller nations that aren't individually highlighted.
Interesting.
It definitely points to cycling's increasing penetration beyond just the traditional powerhouses. Countries like Sweden, Denmark, and Switzerland also show healthy growth within the region as well.
Okay. Shifting gears now to Asia Pacific. This region holds the title for the highest overall regional CAGR globally,
Yeah, this one's a big one.
coming in at a robust 9.877%. The market's expected to grow from $55.1 million to $170.6 million by 2033.
Absolutely remarkable growth here. China is the dominant force in terms of sheer market size, projected to reach over $66 million. Huge market. Japan is also significant, set to exceed $29 million.
But the real standout number in Asia Pacific, and actually the leading individual country CAGR we found anywhere, is India.
Ah, yes, India.
Its market is forecasted to soar from $6.1 million to $21 million by 2033. That boasts an incredible 10.925% CAGR.
That is a truly explosive growth rate for India. I mean,
Yeah.
given its massive population and the vital role two-wheel transport often plays,
Yeah,
especially in urban centers.
right.
This data strongly suggests a significant increase in safety consciousness, maybe coupled with regulatory changes requiring lights alongside that broader cycling trend we talked about.
It really highlights a huge, rapidly mobilizing market embracing essential safety gear.
Absolutely. And we also see strong growth from South Korea, Australia, and the combined markets of Singapore, Southeast Asia, which are climbing significantly, and Taiwan as well. So broad strength across APAC.
Looking south now to South America, the market there is projected to nearly triple overall, growing from $19.8 million to $58 million by 2033.
And Brazil is really the engine driving this regional growth. Its market alone is expected to go from $8.8 million up to $27.7 million.
Okay. That gives it the lead in the region with a 9.936% CAGR. Very strong.
The source also specifically notes that other major countries like Argentina, Colombia, Peru, and Chile, they all saw their bicycle light revenues nearly triple over this forecast period.
Yeah.
So that's really widespread, rapid expansion across the continent, isn't it?
It really is. It points to a broad shift happening there.
Okay, over in the Middle East, the market there is also on a strong upward trajectory, rising from $17 million to $48.9 million.
And here, Saudi Arabia stands out. It has the highest regional CAGR at 10.166%. Another double-digit CAGR. Exactly. Its market value is expected to climb from $5.9 million to $18.8 million. Quite a jump.
And solid growth is also seen across other key countries like
Right.
Turkey, UAE, Egypt, and Qatar, all contributing to this region's positive trend.
Correct. Pretty consistent picture of growth across the Middle East as well.
Finally, let's touch on Africa. The market here shows solid growth, going from $7.6 million to $18.2 million by 2033. Yes, but it's worth noting here, however, that its overall regional CAGR is the lowest compared to the others we've explored. It comes in at 6.817%.
Okay, so while definitely growing, it's doing so at a somewhat slower pace than those really explosive markets we saw in places like Asia Pacific or South America.
That's right. Nigeria and South Africa are the largest contributors within the region, and both show healthy increases over the period. Nigeria going from $2.03 to $5.01, South Africa from $3.04 to $8.04.
So growth is definitely happening.
Yes, the growth is happening, just maybe not at the same accelerated rate seen in regions undergoing perhaps more rapid, large-scale shifts towards cycling infrastructure or, mass adoption for commuting right now.
Okay, so when we zoom back out after this deep dive into all the regional numbers, the key takeaway seems crystal clear, doesn't it? The global bicycle lights market is not just growing, it's thriving.
Yeah, absolutely thrive, with projections for really significant expansion across nearly every corner of the world.
And as we've discussed, this isn't just about selling more gadgets, is it?
Not at all. It's a direct reflection of those larger societal and environmental trends we touched on earlier. Cities embracing cycling as real transport, individuals prioritizing outdoor fitness, and a growing collective environmental consciousness.
Right.
Bicycle lighting technology is, in a way, it's illuminating these broader shifts.
So, based on these market trends and these pretty strong projections, you're kind of left to ponder, aren't you? What does this intense growth in a safety critical component like bicycle lights, what does it imply for the future of, say, urban planning and cycling infrastructure globally?
That's a great question.
And maybe what kind of cutting edge technological advancements in lighting might this expanding high growth market incentivize manufacturers to develop next? Smarter lights, better battery life, maybe integrated systems.
Exactly. Where does the tech go from here when the demand is clearly so strong and growing? That'll be fascinating to watch. Okay, let's get into it. Today, we're doing a deep dive into uh, a market that feels really relevant right now, bicycle lights.
Yeah, it's definitely growing, especially as more people are, getting on bikes. We've been looking at some sources, mainly a pretty detailed report from cognitive market research about its dynamics and future trends.
Right, and our goal here is basically to unpack what's driving this market, what's making it grow, what's maybe holding it back, and, where does it look like it's heading?
Exactly. We want to give you the key forces shaping things.
And it feels really timely, doesn't it? Cycling is booming globally. You see it everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And with more riders, well, visibility and safety are just crucial. Lights aren't just nice to haves anymore.
Well, they're absolutely essential gear. As cycling becomes like a bigger part of transport and recreation, you just need good, reliable lighting.
Okay, so let's talk about that growth first.
Yeah.
What did the report say was the main engine, the primary driver?
Well, the biggest thing really the report points to is just the huge surge in people cycling globally. It's happening for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, you hear about it all the time. Fitness, getting around town, the mental and physical health benefits are huge.
Definitely.
And, of course, the environmental angle, cutting emissions, trying to live a bit more sustainably.
Precisely. And all that enthusiasm for cycling, it directly feeds into needing better safety. More bikes on the road, riding at different times.
Early mornings, late evenings, just bad weather days.
Right. You need lights you can count on. It becomes non-negotiable.
It's interesting, too, how those sort of cultural moments can give it a push. The report mentioned, I think it was June 2025, that pro cycling team, EF Education, Tibsai Pico SVB.
Ah, yes. They used World Bicycle Day to really talk up biking as, healthy and sustainable, encouraging people to make it part of their routine.
That kind of high-profile stuff, it helps normalize it, right? Makes it feel more mainstream.
It absolutely does. But beyond just more people cycling, there's another big driver. The innovation happening in bike technology itself. We're not just talking standard bikes anymore.
Ah, okay. This is where things like e-bikes come in, I guess. That feels like a major shift.
It really is. E-bikes, they tend to go faster, cover longer distances, and that fundamentally changes the safety requirements, You need brighter lights, maybe more intelligent systems that can adapt.
And what about things like bike sharing schemes? They're everywhere in cities now.
Good point.
Yeah.
Those massive fleets, they need standardized lights, obviously, but also really durable ones that get used constantly by all sorts of people, commuters, tourists.
Right, so durability is key there.
Definitely. Huge fleets need lights that last. But the innovation isn't just about power or toughness. The report had this really interesting example, a Canadian startup, Simi.
Oh, yeah. What did they do?
Well, back in February 2025, they launched this mountain bike light, a crazy bright 6,000 lumens.
Wow, okay.
But the really telling part was why. It was designed specifically for nighttime peripheral awareness.
Ah, so not just lighting up the path straight ahead.
Exactly. It shows manufacturers are thinking more broadly about the whole safety picture, which needs, well, more sophisticated high lumen tech.
Okay, so clear momentum for more riders and better tech. But it can't all be smooth sailing.
Yeah.
What were the big challenges? The things sort of hitting the brakes on the market?
The main one, and maybe this is a bit surprising given the cycling boom, is the lack of good biking infrastructure in so many cities around the world.
You mean things like not enough bike lanes, or maybe ones they have are poorly designed?
Yeah, or just no dedicated cycling spaces at all. It varies, but the problem is widespread.
And how does that impact the lights market specifically?
Well, it's pretty direct. If people don't feel safe riding because the roads aren't set up for bikes, they're just less likely to cycle. Which means they're not buying bikes, and they're certainly not buying accessories like lights. It's a real bottleneck, especially in cities where you'd think cycling should be taking off.
Mumbai was a key example in the report, wasn't it? Something from February 2024.
Yes, that analysis showed how the city's, underdeveloped infrastructure combined with some failed public transit plans just created really unsafe conditions for cyclists. Makes it hard to see cycling becoming truly accessible there anytime soon.
Hmm. And this infrastructure issue, it ties right into just general safety worries, right?
Yeah,
Even in places where cycling is more established.
absolutely. It's not just about convenience, it's about genuine fear sometimes.
That UK study from March 2025 really stood out to me, the 58% figure.
Yeah, over half of the women surveyed said they avoided cycling precisely because of unsafe roads and the lack of protected lanes.
That's a huge number.
It is, and it shows how infrastructure isn't just some abstract problem. It directly impacts who feels safe enough to ride, which in turn limits the market. Fixing infrastructure isn't just good policy, it could unlock a lot of pent-up demand.
Definitely puts that challenge in perspective. Okay, so we have these drivers, these significant hurdles. Where's the market heading? What trends are shaping the future, according to the report?
Well, one really clear trend is the move towards smart lighting systems, intelligent lights.
And that means more than just turning on and off, right? The report mentioned things like motion detection, auto dimming.
Auto dimming based on ambient light, GPS syncing, Bluetooth connectivity, often linking up with smartphone apps.
So bike lights are becoming part of the whole connected ecosystem.
Exactly. They're shifting from just being passive safety bits to active connected devices. It suggests that future competition might be less about just lumens or battery life and more about, the software, the data, how well they integrate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I imagine sustainability is another big one, fitting with why many people cycle in the first place.
Definitely. There's a growing focus on using more sustainable materials in manufacturing.
And making the LEDs even more energy efficient, I suppose.
Right. It's driven by consumers being more environmentally conscious. They want products that align with those values.
So manufacturers are responding with greener options?
They are trying to cut energy use and the overall environmental impact. The report also kind of touched on regional differences too.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, established markets like Germany or the Netherlands, they might be pushing those high-end smart innovations more.
Okay.
Whereas maybe in some rapidly growing cities and emerging markets, the demand might be more focused on just basic, reliable, durable lights for the masses. Different needs driving things.
Makes sense. It's a complex global picture. So what's the bottom line? Did the report give a projection, a number for where the market's headed?
It did. It's forecasting the global market value to reach about $828.4 million by 2033.
$828.4 million. And how does that compare? What's the growth rate?
Well, measured from 2021 levels, that represents a pretty strong compound annual growth rate, 8.7%.
Okay, 8.7% CAGR. So even with those big infrastructure challenges we talked about, the overall expectation is still for, well, pretty healthy growth.
Exactly. The fundamental drivers, more cycling, better tech, seem powerful enough to keep pushing the market forward despite those headwinds.
Right. So to kind of wrap up this deep dive then, we've got a market that's clearly benefiting from cycling's popularity and some cool tech advances.
Strong tailwinds.
But it's also bumping up against some really significant fundamental problems, especially that lack of safe infrastructure.
Yeah, that's the core tension. But like we said, the projection is still positive. It suggests that the momentum from lifestyle changes, plus ongoing innovation in smart tech and sustainability, is likely to win out over the next decade or so.
It really makes you think about infrastructure, though. It's not just about city planning or health benefits, important as those are.
No, it's got direct economic impacts too.
Exactly. When you consider how vital safer bike lanes are for getting people riding, you have to wonder, how much could serious investment there unlock, not just for city life, but specifically for the market potential of essential gear-like lights? It makes you think, what specific change in your own area would make you feel safer getting on a bike? Something for all of us to consider.